All right, welcome back. Today we are talking about something truly special, an idea that honestly, every single investor dreams about. We're talking about finding those rare, life-changing stocks. Yep, we are going on the hunt for 100 baggers.
I mean, just let that sink in for a moment. Could you actually turn $1,000 into 100,000 with just one stock? It sounds completely nuts, right? Like winning the lottery. But what if it's not just about blind luck? What if there's actually a pattern, maybe even a formula that you could follow?
Okay, so before we go any further, let's get on the same page. What exactly is a 100-bagger? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's a stock that gives you $100 back for every single dollar you put in. It's the grand slam, the home run. It's the holy grail of investing, and it's exactly what we're going to break down today.
Now here's what's so cool about this. The whole 100-bagger idea isn't some new, flashy, get-rich-quick thing you see online. Nope. This is a concept that's been seriously studied for decades. So let's stop dreaming for a second and start looking at the actual strategy.
So, where did this all even come from? Well, it all starts with some incredible research that proves these massive returns aren't just a fairy tale. They have happened, again and again.
The story really kicks off way back in 1972 with a guy named Thomas Phelps. He went back and sifted through almost 50 years of market history, and you know what? He found them. He found the stocks that delivered that incredible 100-to-1 return. Fast forward a few decades, and another author, Chris Mayer, was so blown away by this work that he decided to do it all over again, this time looking at a more modern period, from 1962 all the way to 2014.
And here is the absolute craziest part. You're not going to believe this. Both of these studies, looking at totally different time periods, found the exact same number of 100-bagger stocks, 365. Now come on, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern.
But, as cool as that number is, what's really important is what these studies found out. These massive winning stocks, they weren't random. They all shared some common characteristics. It's like they cracked the code. They found the magic formula for finding these incredible compounders. And the best part? We can learn from it.
And that brings us to the first of what I like to call the twin pillars of success. Pillar number one, the hunt. This is all about knowing what to look for. And lucky for us, the research gives us a fantastic checklist to get started.
First things first, size and value. Look, the data here is crystal clear. It is way easier for a small company to grow 100 times than it is for a giant one. So you got to start small. We're looking for smaller companies both in terms of their market cap, that's just the total value of all their shares, and in their sales. And often, the hunt begins with businesses that have what we call low valuation multiples, which is just a fancy way of saying they look kind of cheap compared to their earnings or sales.
All right, next up, we need growth and quality. See, just being small isn't enough. The company has to be growing, and growing well. We want to see sales and profits going up, obviously, but we also want to see something called margin expansion. That means the company is actually getting more profitable as it gets bigger, which is a huge sign of a great business. And here's the real secret sauce, the engine of all this compounding, a high return on capital. If a company can earn, say, over 20% on the money it plows back into itself, and it can do that year after year, well, that's when you get that explosive exponential growth.
And finally, we've got the stuff you can't always see on a spreadsheet. We love to see an owner-operator, someone running the company who also owns a huge chunk of it. Why? Because they've got serious skin in the game. They think like long-term owners, not just managers collecting a paycheck. Their success is tied directly to yours. The business also needs a strong competitive moat to fend off rivals and protect those juicy profits. And we look for pricing power, which you can often spot by looking at high gross margins. Basically, if a company can charge a premium for its product and customers are happy to pay it, that's a massive, massive advantage.
Okay, so let's say you've done all that. You followed the checklist, you found a potential winner. That is fantastic. But here's the thing. Finding the stock is actually the easy part. Seriously, now comes the second, and I would argue the much, much harder pillar, having the right mindset to actually hold on for the wild ride.
Look, the journey to a 100-bagger is a total roller coaster. There will be terrifying drops. You have to be willing to hold through the thick and the thin, to completely ignore the daily news cycle, and to bet big when you have real conviction. This is the absolute polar opposite of how a typical trader thinks, right? They sell on the slightest hiccup, they react to every headline, they diversify so much they end up with mediocrity, and they're always chasing the next short-term pop.
One of the best pieces of advice is this simple phrase, don't get bored. It sounds so simple, right? But it's absolutely crucial. Real compounding takes years, sometimes decades, and the single biggest enemy of an amazing long-term return
is our own impatience. Honestly, sometimes the most profitable thing you can do is absolutely nothing.
So all of this, the hunt, the mindset, the patience, it all leads to this really beautiful, simple idea that ties everything together. It's called the coffee can portfolio. And it's a really powerful metaphor for how to put this whole strategy into practice. The coffee can approach is it's elegantly simple. Step 1, you do all the hard work up front using our checklist to find a truly great business. Step 2, you buy a meaningful amount, a concentrated position. And step 3, you mentally lock it away in a metaphorical coffee can and you just forget about it for at least 10 years.
And this really gets to the core philosophy of the whole thing. The coffee can is basically admitting that once we find a phenomenal company, we are often the biggest threat to our own returns. Our meddling, our fear, our greed, it gets in the way. The goal here is to just get out of the way and let these great businesses do their work. Let compounding work its magic.
And that brings us to the end. The hunt for a 100-bagger is this incredible mix of diligent, hard-nosed research and just extraordinary patience. It's about finding the right business and then having the discipline to let it do its thing. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Based on everything we've talked about today, what is the one company you would put in your coffee can?